Hey, hey, hey.
What's going on? What's going on? We doing this again?
Yeah, three times the charm,
All
If
right.
you're watching
Hopefully.
this broadcast, I'm going to ask you guys to make sure you share this broadcast. Welcome to On Track with All My People Live. This is your girl, Amber Peters, A.K.A Mizz P, and this is...
Daitwan David, All My People, and I'm going with Dr. Change. And Amber, are they going to be rhyming to the instrumental for the night?
Oh, right. Thank you for letting me know, because, we can't have that. We can't have that. So, guys, I'm so excited that you guys tuned in. Like today, we're going to have a great talk. We're bringing on a good friend of mine, Dr. Kathyanne Davis, and we're going to be talking to her a
Mhm.
little bit in a few. But today's episode is literally just about mental health and kids going through the college process because yeah, we know it get crazy. So we're gonna talk about a few things, but like I said before, make sure you share this broadcast, let your friends and family know, especially if you have a young person in your life that is planning, if you have a brother or sister who has children that are college age. Please let them know that we are here and we're here to support and we're here to help. So we want to make sure that we're able to support our community in the best way possible, and we can't do that without you. So make sure you share this broadcast. But without further ado, I guess we'll jump into the topic at hand. When you jump
For sure.
on, if you're watching this on a replay, just make sure in the comments you put replay so we know that you are catching us on the replay. Cool? All
Mm-hmm.
right. So Daitwan. We know this process is nuts, right? We know
Yep.
this. We've been seeing this. We've been doing this for a while. But like, I want to ask you, like, what do you think is happening in the minds of teens that are planning right now? What are some of the things that you are seeing out there?
When you're saying planning for what specifically?
Planning for college, planning for life.
Planning for college, planning for life. So, um, yeah, a lot is happening, and I can kind of speak to it because one of the things that I do is survey my classes about where they're at right now, just in terms of like what's their mindset. So let's backtrack before that. One of the reasons that we're having this episode today is because we just went through the pandemic, right? 18 months, we're still in it, but 18 solid months of like a lot of young people's lives, but also their educational experiences, choices, educational livelihoods have been impacted. I saw an article in the Daily News where the DOE since the pandemic has lost 64,000 students. Like enrollment has dropped significantly, and there's a bunch of reasons as to why that's happening. One reason might be like just like the emotional trauma and turmoil that is happening right now as people are trying to figure out life, right? So trying to figure out life under normal circumstances is challenging, but even now it's even crazier. So some of the things that I'm seeing is a couple of different things. Some students are disengaged with the process completely, especially in working with our 11th and 12th graders. They're just like, yo, I haven't even started school yet. We're going into month 3, right? You also have some students that are, there's a handful of students that are just super like on it. They're moving through the process. They're getting it, right? Like getting the acceptances, they're turning things in and etc. And then there's a medium, there's a mid group that they're just like maybe interested, but they have no clue, like starting from scratch, right? Like, and they have to really get into that mindset of, is college really a thing for them? They might have been on track at one point in time to have that mindset, but now it's like they're not really sure. So I'm seeing a lot of disengagement with this process. How about you?
I think I'm seeing the same thing. Like, it's weird because I mean pre-pandemic it was pretty much the same. I'm not even gonna lie, right? But like now that we add in all of the stuff that they went through, a lot of them are coming to terms with the fact that they really haven't been in school, right? So they're still
Mhm.
learning how to be back in school and how to engage with their peers and how to have those relationships again. So like as they're navigating that, they're also like, oh crap, look at all these deadlines I got coming up and all
For
these things
sure.
that I have to hand in at the same time. And it's a mess. It's a mess. I would say that it would probably be the same pre-pandemic, right? This idea of like, oh crap, look at all the stuff I have to do as a 12th grader that nobody told me was coming, because like, let's
Mhm.
be clear, a lot of times that information doesn't circulate until it's 12th grade year, and it's like, oh,
Mhm.
guess what? Now you got to do your financial aid applications, and you got to do your applications, and
Right.
you got to do your classes, and if you work after school, and if you take care of your brother and sister, right? Life starts life in, and it becomes a whole lot. But then enter now Penny, right? Where they're also trying to figure out, are we even going to be able to have a normal senior year? Like, what does normal even
Mhm.
look like anymore? Right? All the stuff that they seen their peers have in prior years. Oh, they got to go to prom and they got to do this, right? Are those things also going to be taken away from me this year? Are we even going to be able to experience all those things? So there's a whole lot of questions and not a lot of answers, and that can make anybody really anxious. So that's pretty much what I'm seeing on my end. I think also, like, what was it, Friday? Friday, I just seen a lot of people like in a panic. And what I noticed is that when
Mhm.
people are in a panic, they just like do whatever, right? So like they would be concerned otherwise about like what their documentation looks like, right? I might have been concerned what my essay looks like, but because I just want this process to be done with, over with, and out of my face, I'm just gonna give whatever. I'm seeing a lot of that too.
Yeah. So I'm wondering about the intentionality of people's choices, and also the intentionality of how people are supporting these students, right? Because
Oh
like
yeah.
if you are supporting these students, some people are caught in between a rock and a hard place. Do I just create the easiest path for these students to get things done because I have to meet a quota, right? So do I like just kind of just create this easy path, or do I go from a different direction of really allowing them to experience this process how they need to, where they recognize their identity, recognize their autonomy, and the empowerment of their own, the ability to create options and choices, right? And I think that in some of these situations, you for certain know that practitioners are going to be experiencing a lot of this pressure also because they want to make sure that students are creating valuable post-secondary plans.
Yeah.
Another thing that is, I think, coming to uh, fruition, if you will, is that a lot of students are considering that is being called termed as pro pathways or alternative post-secondary plans. I guess alternative is not the most appropriate word, but just post-secondary plans that don't, just align with going to colleges or universities. So I see a lot of students that are just saying like out the gate is trade school or nothing. So which is I'm all the way cool with. There's so many things that we'll hopefully get a chance to talk about trade schools on this platform that we're creating for ourselves. But those are some of the trends that I'm seeing right now.
Yeah, and I'm honestly like, I don't see anything wrong with it. I think also I wish there was more talk about like all the options that are out there, right? Because there's so many
Mm,
different up and coming programs that like literally educate the student on whatever the skill is, help them build the skill, lots of times for free. And we
yep.
don't talk about those. So like when we're having a conversation of college, you see the kids that like maybe not are that may not be interested, like kind of check out of the conversation because you're not really talking to them, right? And it's like there's so many things out there that people are just not educated about, and like, or some people just don't feel comfortable about, right? Because it's like, oh well, I went to college, so you have to go. And it's like, well, there's all these other options, and that option actually may fit this kid better, but like we're not necessarily equipped to talk about it. So hopefully we get to have that conversation later on. I think also like I want to talk about like some mood changes. Like
Mm,
what I was telling Daitwan story about like someone who reached out to me at one point, and they saw me like in a commercial, and they called me and just was like, hey, I'd love to get your help on something. And the parent was just like, done with the whole process of like trying to support their teen. And the team was done with them, and they called me separately, and it was so weird because it was like they both called me, but they called me for separate reasons. So like mom is like, I just want her to see like she has other options, and I don't know how to get through to her. And the
mm,
child is like, well, she should have planned better. And I was just like, oh, okay. And so this great
mm,
kid turned into a whole gremlin and was not, like it was a very volatile situation for the family. And sometimes it does happen. So I wanted to like put that out there that sometimes you may see your beautiful, smiling, wonderful kid they may change into somebody you don't even know during this process, because
Right.
they want what they want. They want it to happen the way they want, and like they're not prepared for, you know, any letdowns or any anything that's not going to go their way. They may not be prepared to handle it. So we're going to definitely talk about that. We're bringing on a guest, our wonderful friend, uh, Dr. Kathyanne Davis. We're going to bring her on soon so she can talk about that. Have you seen something like that, Daitwan, in your experience?
Yeah. So I've seen plenty of it. So let's break that down, and I would love Dr. Davis to like really speak on this. Students' lives as students have been disrupted for 18 months, right? So um, oftentimes, like you can hear people talk about that a lot of the educational spaces from K to 12 were babysitting services, which there's some truth to it. There's a lot of truth to it. There's also so much more that teachers, principals, since like school staff have provided in terms of a hopefully a framework for students to think about themselves beyond just the classroom, beyond just their age, but more so into the future. So now you're telling young people to come back into 18 after 18 months. In particular, we're talking about students that are in high school, the juniors and seniors, and saying like, here, you're about to be leaving this space. You haven't been in this space for a year and a half, but you're about to be leaving this space. And what they may be assuming or presuming is that they need to leave this space and have life figured out. And that's a crazy thing, right? Like, so when you look at this in psychology is achievement theory or whatever, you know, you have students that are trying to approach things, you know, because they're approaching things from like they want to succeed, right? So they're going to approach it with that mindset. Or some students are going to avoid things because they're not trying to fail. And some students are really legitimately not trying to approach this process or approach the next step of what they need to do because there's that fear of failure, right? There's that fear
Yeah.
of like, I'm not going to be able to succeed at this next level. And like literally, this is like the last step before I kind of go on to the real world. And who knows what that is.
Yep.
You're seeing students not engaged. You're also seeing students not in the classroom or just kind of doing whatever they want. And we've dealt with that before, but now I think it's like there's going to be a
It's a
lot of
whole
work
different level.
necessary. A whole
It's
different
a
level.
whole different level right now.
Yeah,
It's a whole different level right now.
for sure.
So without further ado, we're gonna bring on our guest. So I'm gonna introduce her because I'm gonna use her bio, y'all, because one, I
Talk
know her
about it.
really well, and also she has achieved doctorate status. And I want to make sure I do her intro the way she wrote her intro, because y'all
Mhm.
deserve all her greatness and all her brilliance. So let me introduce my people the right way. So Dr. Kathyanne Davis is the founder of the Concrete Rose Effect, Inc., an education and training organization dedicated to healing and empowerment of Black male youth. Dr. Davis is also a school social worker for the New York City Department of Education. Her job at the New York City DOE involves work as a crisis counselor and special education advocate. In addition, she has extensive experience working with wraparounds and family preservation programs. Her experience with youth provided an insight into how arts can promote resilience, self determination, and self advocacy. Through her work, she explores the power of images, their role as catalysts for trauma and healing, and how visual art and technology can inform and enhance culturally competent social work practice, intervention, and research methods. Dr. Davis received her doctorate in social work from the University of California, her master's in social work from New York University, and her bachelor's of science from Utica College. So we want to welcome to On Track with All My People, Dr. Kathyanne Davis.
Man, we need one of those
Wow!
things.
I got to be ignorant. That's my people's
I
y'all.
copied myself. Thank you.
We need our
First and
sound effect.
foremost, I would like to thank Miss P and Dr. Change for allowing me to be on their platform in such an important space that, I would definitely have used as a child. In our community, is limited spaces that we can get a true understanding of this next step that is so important. So thank you for this.
Absolutely. So we gonna jump right in because obviously we have questions for you. So Daitwan, you want to hit up with the first question?
I'll hit it with the first question. Before I get into that, Amber, I want to celebrate you for your A1 enunciation. That was a lot of big words.
I know, right? I didn't
Public
show up
education?
with nothing.
Public education? Did you right? Dr. Davis, thank you for respecting this thing, and I'm still trying to figure out. You're the first person to call me Dr. Change and then laugh about it. Amber was being, a little silly with it.
You
You
know, I
said
was
it.
chuckled.
I'm
I
a
Definitely
smiley
chuckled.
person. There was no feeling towards it. If you find out, I giggle a lot.
No. I'm saying you put
No,
respect on it. Amber
You
was
said you
smiling.
gave it respect. You put
Of
respect
You
on
gave
his
course.
it.
name.
Yeah,
He literally
yeah.
said his name
Trying to
last
build it
week.
up.
So
I love it.
Appreciate it. So, we definitely have you here because we understand your expertise, your experience, your focus on just a lot of like the mental health that is involved in helping to support young people. But before we even get into that, we want to kind of just have a little fun with your introduction to our audience. And let's start off with your college journey. If you could kind of summarize, what was your college journey like?
So, I guess in terms of first bring it off, I am first generation Caribbean, Jamaican, to be specific. Very strict upbringing. So to even go away to school was a big journey. It took a lot of plotting, a lot of planning, and some relatives to co-sign to allow my father to allow me to even go far away. So planning for me started very early because it was a lot that had to be put in place properly for the execution. I had a full ride to CW Post. If you know Long Island, it's a very good school. And I didn't go. I went upstate. I think it talks to college in the fact that a lot of counselors was telling me about like majors and different things. But for me, it was really about lifestyle. I wanted to find out who I was. And that meant going away. I'm from a big family, Caribbean background. It's very hard to find that and then confined space. So unlike a lot of my peers, I was looking at what's not too far from home, what's close by, what I can still major in something. At the time, True Caribbean, I wanted to be a doctor. There's only 4 careers.
right.
But at that time, I didn't graduate with a medical. I didn't go into the doctorate. I did that later on. But at that time, that was the focus. That's what I'm gonna do. So my mom helped me a lot with little understanding, and I think that's a big piece that will have to come into the conversation. Like, how much do our parents really understand about this process, especially when you begin to speak about first generation? So to kind of like sum it all up, my journey was planning, finding my advocates, and then the execution of getting the people that are most important to me and who would have my financial aid paperwork to buy in. So a lot of having my dad sign stuff that he may not have known a lot about.
Wait, can you tell the audience how you finessed it though? You tell them how this girl, when I tell you the ultimate finesser. Happy, y'all.
Beyond even finesse, when you're from certain cultures, you're forced to like have a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, a plan D. So there was a lot of planning going, and I didn't get into my first choice, but I won't go into that. So when I did decide on a college and that it was 5 hours away from my home, my dad, I knew was not going to be for it. He had already paid the deposit for CW Post. It was 15 minutes from my mom's job. It was like heaven for him, like the ultimate, like, yes, that's where my daughter's going. She can come home on the weekends and eat food and be good. And so my aunt had just had knee surgery, bless her soul. She was living in Florida. I called and I was like, yo, dad's not going to drive me up to college. And I really, really, really want to go to this college. Can you come up and make him drive me to college? And she did. Right after nurse surgery, she came up. She's the oldest. She came up boss style and like, we're going. But a little bit in retrospect, he was telling the whole world about me going upstate to college when he found out. I just never knew. So that's also the duality with college and us. I was getting the cussing and you're going to go out there. You know how Caribbean people do.
But I swear that's what they do. Like, they make it seem like it's the end of the world, but they telling everybody a whole different story.
Yes.
But to you, you're getting like the backlash.
Yes. So I printed out the directions, like wanted to make nothing go wrong that day. And he was like, I know where I'm going. Because he had looked up everything, but I didn't know it at that time. At that time, I was terrified. There was some shows skits, colleges need to look into that. They did some skits and stuff that was supposed to tell the college experience. I was so happy my aunt's knees was hurt, and I found out later on. And so they went back to the hotel room. And so like, yeah, my journey to college was a lot of planning, but a lot of ignorance in a lot of stuff, because me and my mom, literally, it's before the internet. So we just had a big book and we were picking random things from a big book.
Mm-hmm.
I never saw the campus.
That's so much like our kids now too. Like they're picking from a big book, like without really any thought. They're just choosing things.
Yeah, and it's little random stuff. And then also the fact that you didn't see it. The first time I saw my campus was the day I walked on it. And you didn't realize that freshman dorms, your house is better. My mom was like, I ain't raise you like that. What is these dorms? I was not prepared for the downgrade in living.
For real.
But yeah, I guess that was pretty much sums up my college journey, that I had to understand my culture and the people that I was dealing with to be able to actually execute the dream that I was looking for.
Awesome. Another question I guess we can ask you is like, what was something that you learned about yourself in the process?
Ooh. I think the biggest lesson I learned in the 4 years in the process going to it is that financial aid isn't everything. Most of my support did not come from money wise. It came from like people and resources. And I think that's one of the biggest thing in our community that's not taught: social capital.
Oh yeah.
And like really valuing the capital and how to like network with it and really use it to our advantage. I was doing it without the language. But I realized I had a lot of social capital, if not financial capital. So there was people who were going to make sure I eat. There was people who was going to make sure I had clothes. There's people going to be like, oh, I'm going to get a ride up. They may not be able to pay the tuition, but they were able to afford me other things that made the process a little less stressful. And I think that was big, that I didn't appreciate as much, more in retrospect than in the moment.
Nice.
Yeah, that's I just had to write that down because I need to make sure that we lock in on that social capital like idea.
Yeah.
So in terms of now, you've gone through college, you clearly have gone a bunch of degrees, so you have done the thing, right? And hopefully the family's proud that you have become a doctor, different kind of doctor, but you have become a doctor. So now, in terms of where you're at in your professional experience, like what are things you have to help students go through before they can mentally prepare for the future? Like what do you think are like some of the key things that you need to hone in on?
Oh, so, and I will preface that each generation is different. Each year is
Sure.
different. So the subgroups always look different. Coming out of COVID, I find that a lot of our youth have terminology, mental health terminology, which is like, yay, okay. They're kind of connecting to their emotions, but then you realize that they only have the words.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that, it's like, okay, I'm anxious, I'm overwhelmed, I'm having panic attacks. But when you start to get down to the nitty of it, like break that down for me. And so I think it's almost sometimes used as a comfort blanket. Oh, this is too overwhelming. Oh, I'm too anxious. And it's okay, yeah, you can be that. But what are the coping tools you use to get through it? What are the coping tools you need to have to kind of build that resiliency? And I think we have put a crutch where sometimes they don't understand that it also is the work after that. Yes, now you understand what's happening to you. Now, how do you do the work so that it doesn't become the end all be all? Like I always bring up Summer Walker. Me and Amber have discussions about her all the time. Like when she got into the industry and she was just like, oh, I have social anxiety. Okay, good. You could identify what's happening for you. But what are you putting in place so that you can now execute the job that you need to do? You could have had a therapist on tour with you. You could be getting inside. There's so much different interventions that are there to help, that I feel like we've got the terms now and we're kind of connected with our body, but now we need to move to the next steps. And that's like kind of like most what I do with my students. It's like, okay, so I get what you're feeling in this moment, and I get the anxiety from the college process. Now, like, how do we build coping tools to help you pass that? Because those are the same coping tools you're going to need that freshman year when the classes get a little harder, when you may not know where your tuition is coming from, when you have an assignment due, you still have to work, and they're asking you for this bill. So it's like, it's the preparation for those hard, challenging years when you don't have the family support.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Real quick, Amber, let me just ask a follow-up question, because I know you're speaking from many different perspectives. But right now, what's probably coming through clearer is your professional perspective.
Mhm.
What do you think is a coping tool that you used while you were in college for some of the challenges? Because you dealt with
Ooh.
the fact that there was less access to a lot of resources,
I was
right? Like,
actually going to talk about that in the next question, but we could go on into
oh,
it.
then let me tell you my business, and then Amber, you asked the next question.
So I think a key piece of it is that my root and my core, I'm a hustler. And a lot of our youth are that. They've
And she
already
ain't lying.
started companies, they're doing their Instagram, they're doing their YouTube things, but they haven't processed in their brains how do we put that into education. And those still, like I was hustling for my textbook. Oh, I can't afford this. Hey, teacher, you got an extra one? Who has what in the library? Like you have to have those same type of tools towards the education. Who do you talk to when you don't have the resources? What can you join? This like one day I was walking on campus, and this was during my master's, and literally up on the wall by the elevator, there was a poster that said, "If your job offers an internship to the students here, you get $5,000 automatically." No one had told me this. Yet my job did offer internships. I was in the office the next day, like, hey, I work for this agency. They take interns. Take that 5,000 off my tuition. And it's like those little things. So like keeping your eye open. Affinity groups, I cannot stress the importance of affinity groups. Like joining cultural groups that spoke to, because it is at times when it can feel so alone and like you're only experiencing it by yourself. Having other Caribbean groups. I was a member of the Caribbean Association. I was with the Black Student Union. I'm with the programming board. Like just really joining stuff and becoming immersed in the community. You hear it and it sounds so cliche, but when you feel isolated, you could so sink into a depression. And depending where you go, like I went to school upstate. October is dark, it's gloomy, and it's staying that way till like May. If you're not checking in with yourself, if you're not having that support, it's very easy to kind of just isolate and zone out. So I would say affinity groups, check in with your resources, be that hustler you with everything else in life with your education. Because there are resources out there, but they're sometimes not promoted in a way that we can get access to it. But once you start speaking, people like I didn't even know one professor was putting all his exams in the library till the last exam. And I was like, what? If I knew this from the beginning, I'd have just been going to the library and studying the old exams. So it's just like really funneling information and getting, when you're in these groups, you get more access to information.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so another question for you. What do you anticipating like when do you anticipate students needing more of? Like now that we are in this age and thinking about this group, because when you said all groups are different, what do you think this particular group is going to need more support with now and in their transition?
Similar to what Dr. Change was talking about a little before I came on.
Look, he is loving it. Every time you say it, he just starts beaming. He smiles so hard.
I think that the support and understanding that this has not been a typical year and they've missed out on a lot. And it doesn't feel like the year, like when we got to our senior year, we felt like we had passed mountains, hurdles. We've had all these social interactions. And it's kind of like they went from freshman year and then now I'm a senior. There's no connection to it. There's no feeling towards it. It's just like, I'm here. And so how do I get that motivation? How do I get that push? And we have to reignite that in them. I would say like even with when we're talking about like not seeing a campus, all right, you can't afford to go to a campus, but now they're virtual. Make it a night with your family. Like, oh, we're gonna look at these colleges. Let's pop some popcorns. Let's do a virtual tour. Like you have to get creative with it to rebuild that motivation. And it doesn't always have to take money. Looking, watching movies. Like I remember just watching like School Days in a Different World, and it made me feel like college and
Yes.
hype about it. And I didn't want to go
Yes.
to HBCU only because I was scared. I'm from the suburbs, but
That's our running joke, by the way. She's from
Yeah.
Long Island.
But you know, those things helps. I think that one of the biggest tools is that we're gonna have to ignite that fire and that motivation. I think one of the places where school fails the most is that we so focus on majors. And if you live in New York City, you already taught the major. You picked the major when you were 14. I'll say New York City and any urban areas, because that's the only places where school are designed by majors from your high school. And
Hmm.
part of my struggle, especially not growing up in that environment, is like maybe recognizing a kid who's been in this particular subject or field from high school. It's not really for them, but it's all they've ever known. So now
Hmm.
you're applying to colleges, an extra transition on the same thing that's not for you. And then
Oh
how
yeah.
expand your horizon, let you learn more stuff, explore in different fields. Like there's so many industries that we're never introduced to.
Hmm.
Because if you only look from academic subjects, you're never seeing all of these industries. So I'm very big with my students about like, what is your passion? What are you interested in too? Like my niece's birthday was the other day. She's like really into makeup. She's 12. I got her a mannequin, a makeup artist book, a face design thing. You're like, okay, this is your passion. Let's figure out how do we mold it? How do we build on it? So, like what you were talking about with the trade schools and the different stuff, college may not be the end all and be all, but how do we nurture the talent that we're seeing?
Oh
How do
yeah.
we nurture the things that really give them passion and then maybe connect it to a major, maybe connect it to a passion? But when we do, oh, I'm looking at your transcript and oh, you got some good science grade, let's go to biology. What does that mean? What does
Yeah.
that transition into a career as? What does that transition into a lifestyle? I talk a lot with my students about a lifestyle. What's the lifestyle you're looking for? Are you trying to live in an apartment? Are you trying to live in a city? Are you trying to go to the suburbs? Do you want to have summers off? Do you want to work weekends? Those stuff are important in picking a career, but
Very.
it's the
Ooh.
least
Can I just tell you,
conversation that
Kat?
we have,
Like,
huh?
I knew this was gonna be perfect because this is how we think. This is exactly how we think. Like, we have
Hmm.
to show them the end so that they can work backwards. And I like,
Yeah.
I'm so big on that because I think if kids thought about their lifestyle a little bit more, they wouldn't pick the job that's gonna make them $20,000 because then that lifestyle would never happen. It would never be a thing. So I think that is so spot on. And I'm like, I'm sitting here like my whole leg is shaking. I'm like, yes, 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 yes. Because I think
I
that's
think
something that we
also
do have to talk
too,
about more.
if I'm a kid and I'm in a house and I'm helping with my siblings and I'm doing all this and you're telling me about going to be a doctor, but you're not talking about how I can maybe escape doing all of that adulting stuff.
Okay.
That's going
Hello.
to sell it to me more than you telling me about this major, because it's more instant. It's more where I can understand. Oh, if I go in this dorm, I don't have to pay rent, and rent in New York City is really hard. I only have to worry about my tuition for one semester. That's more appealing than, hey, you're good in science, you know? And
Yeah.
so I think it's the different things that we can look at to really tap into our youth. We're battling with social media.
Oh
I said
yeah.
social media has raised our children for the last 2 years. And so who's not going to become an Instagram star is going to do this. So it's like when you're competing with that, you have to appeal. It has to be some level of instant gratification, whether right or wrong. That's their mindset. And one of the first things we learn in counseling is like, you have to be where the client's at.
Of course.
And where these clients are at is like, what is my immediate gratification? What do I get out of this? What can I get out of this in the immediate moment? Not 10 years from now, not 5 years from now. So it may be a fun group, your people. Like I just had a conversation with one student because she doesn't feel connected to the high school. And I was talking about colleges where it may feel more like your people. And
Hmm.
you can get there, you can find your tribe. And so I have a lot of conversations around that too, because sometimes your high school makes you feel like the alien. But there's colleges and spaces that have more people that's into anime and foreign films like you. So go to that space and, different stuff. So I'm gonna wrap it up because I know I'm very long-winded.
No, but let's. So you're speaking a lot to our language. I want people to hear exactly when the Caribbean accent comes out, though. My pops, when he says movies, he says it the same way that you just
Slim.
said it. The same way you just said it.
You watching the
I've heard,
films?
I've heard it a couple of times. The accent's coming out, but really dope that you're speaking to our language and our philosophy and approach to this work of the 7 habits of highly effective people and teams we talked about. One of the habits is beginning with the end in mind. This is where the whole Dr. Strange origin comes from. So I want the schools to know that Miss P and Dr. Change, there's a doctor that's on here right now that's letting y'all know that we are doing this the right way.
Period.
Period. So we want to get into this next question before we transition to our next topic. So we understand that you're dealing with a lot of students, and there's a lot of different emotions that they have to deal with when they get hit with reality. Rejection is one of them,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Like,
Woo.
and so, what tips do you have for a student that may face rejection through this process? And thinking about it, um, do you think students are fearful of that? Like, they're fearful of rejection in this process?
I think more than fearful, not prepared.
Mm,
Mm.
I think on some level, especially in this culture, it's hard to imagine you not getting what you want, especially if you had worked for it. Because there's a lot of students that apply that check off all the boxes, yet you still don't get in.
Yep.
mhm,
And then how do you face that? Like, I did everything they told me to do. I took the AP classes. I took this. I basically killed myself to get to this senior year. And now the place I wanted to go to is not accepting me. I think the biggest part is validating those feelings. I spoke to it earlier. I was not accepted into my first school. It was the only place I applied to. I was like, I'm getting in here. I know it, everything. And then they were like, rejection. And then starting from the top to reapply and do all that, it's soul crushing. And so you have to give them the moment to breathe that process
mhm.
and really go through that, like, okay, I didn't get this. But then that might not be been the place for you. Universe moves certain way. I do a lot of universe talk. It's like our safety net. Because it is a hard conversation and it's hard for them to build back from that. And then, all right, what else fits what you want? Hopefully they had a good counselor that put in a lot of safety plans. I did a lot of school on my own. And so I didn't like even get help. It was me and my mama trying to figure it out. The best way is to have those safety nets. So, like, I had a young man this week. He wants to go to school where his girlfriend is going. Okay, he don't really got the grades for that school. So I'm like, let's
Mhm,
put in some safety nets in here. What's the community college by that school? What's
mhm,
these other pieces? We didn't even go into, like, I think sometimes adults will go into the relationship. Not my business. Not
mhm,
the piece.
mhm.
All right, what other things are around this area? Then what's still close to your parent just in case, things change. And, like, really making a broad portfolio and not only narrowing down to one thing. I didn't start immediately and was like, oh, we're going to go to here. I was like, okay, let's look at the campus. Let's look at their requirements. All right, we missed some school here. Let's have a backup. And he's like, all right, cool. As long as it was in the area with the girl, he was all right with it. So it's really in how you phrase it and really knowing your student. And I know that sounds cliche, but the more rapport, the more relationship. They're not assembly lines. They're not
For
checklists.
sure.
They're not the sheet where, okay, you did this, you did this, you did this. You have to have that rapport and that understanding of your student to truly help them through that rejection process.
Mhm,
So, oh my God, I'm so glad you said that. Like, I think that is the thing that I think I want to drive home that point because it's so important. They're going to be disappointed. I seen it last year. Last year was the year of, you had students who were making choices they wouldn't have otherwise, right? Because they saw that people were having class in their living room. They said, you know what? I don't want to be in, like, pay all this money for a school and then be in my living room. So a lot of students, interestingly enough, a lot of students that applied to CUNY last year that would have been great shoo-ins for certain schools. Like, I had kids that was like, they had the grades, they had the test scores for Hunter, but because there were other students who had better
mhm,
profiles, they were
mhm.
placed out and had to start at community college. Oh, guess what? If you go to this community college, we have a bridge program with them and you'll get in, but you still have to start there. And it was soul crushing for a lot of kids because they're like, I would have got in last year, right? But because things are different now and they have to compete with so many more students, this is a real possibility that we have to prepare them for. And I think that's important. I'm so glad you talked about that. So glad. But now we get off the hard stuff. We're gonna get into some fun stuff.
Can I add
Um,
three little
oh,
things because
oh,
I forgot to
I
state it
forget.
in my
She writes notes,
conversation.
y'all. She about to give y'all
Right,
some
no,
gems.
those
So
are
I hope
gold.
y'all paying attention.
Um, so a big piece from my place sitting, understanding that the essay process is traumatic
Oh
for
yeah.
some students, and it can be triggering because they're being asked to be triggered. Like, Especially for minorities, they try and find like the worst minority story ever in your life, even if it's not similarly close. So I think that's very mindful as people working with students as well as the parents at home. Just understand that that process of writing an essay can be very triggering for students, and having those support, whether it's going to their school counselor or whoever, to kind of walk them through that essay process, because they do it in English class, and I don't think they're fully understanding like what they're building up for a lot of students.
Oh yeah.
Also, along with the essay, as someone who gets asked to write a lot of recommendations, always prepare the person you're asking for. Send your resume, send extra write-ups, send different stuff so that they can give you the best recommendation possible. I think that's something that's missed, but that goes around with the social capital and social change, understanding how to use your networks and how do you bond in with those networks and what it means. So I know you guys are going to do a segment on that, so I'm going to just leave that there.
Yep.
In it. So those are like two important points that I just wanted to make in the whole thing that I forgot to mention.
Always listen, Dr. Kathyanne Davis, y'all. In case you didn't know, you know now. Definitely top of her field. Definitely, very like I've actually witnessed her work with young people, and like she's a magician. I don't care what nobody says. The way she gets young people to open up and like really like explore a lot of things. So she's not just thinking about just mental health. She's also helping with the process of college. She's also helping them figure out what they want to do life after high school. She's doing a lot of work. And I want you guys to pay attention, because this is not going to be the last that you see of her. I promise you, she has so much more in store. Concrete Rose Effect is going to be big and blow up and teach y'all all how to engage young Black males. So make sure you pay attention to that. But we're going to get into some fun, and we're going to play our little game. We have a game time. So pretty much what happens during this time is that we just ask a bunch of questions, and it's kind of like trivia for us, so you can get to know us. And then also when we have guests like Dr. Kathyanne Davis, you guys get to learn about her as well, or whoever it is that is on. So the game we're going to play today, we're going to play this or that.
Okay.
All right, so the first one, and I already know this about her because this is my dog, right? I already know this. Sweet or salty?
Salty.
We know this girl. Listen, this girl eat chip. That's a chipper. She can eat some chips, y'all. Daitwan, what about you? Sweet or salty?
I'm going savory.
Listen, that was not there. Sweet or salty, man.
I can't. Dr. Change. He just. All right. Let me go sweet on this one. Let me go sweet on this one.
Yeah, I'm definitely a sweets girl. If you know me, buy me chocolate. I like Kit Kats and Snickers and Twix. So handle that. Make
I
that
don't
happen.
even like chocolate.
We know. Well, I know. I don't know if y'all know, but I definitely know. All right, the next one. Game night in or party out?
Game night.
Really? I don't know. I know things about her, y'all. So I'm looking at her like game night for real. Daitwan.
Is that Juve turning up?
Listen.
At my root and my core, I'm a game night.
Understood. I'm going game night competition.
Yeah, I'm that. Well, see, this is me and Daitwan. We're gonna have a talk after this show. Because every show we come on, he got to be all this competition focused. The boy like to win. Well, I can't say nothing. You in good company, because Kathyanne be knocking people out during musical chairs.
Musical chairs.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a game night. I'm very competitive.
Look. Y'all made for each other. I can't do it. I can't do that.
Why play if you're not gonna play to your best ability?
I'm gonna play to my best ability, but like if I lose, I'm not gonna cry.
I don't cry. I'm gonna beat you. We're gonna play like 10 more rounds.
The next one, AM classes versus PM classes.
I'm a morning person, AM.
That PM looking like real late. We saying PM, what we talking about?
PM, afternoon.
No,
let's say like 3 to the time the college.
Nah, traditional ones are like 6:30.
Yeah. You bugging.
Listen, I had a class as late as 8 o'clock, at night. That's
All right, so yeah,
PM.
as of right now, if I have no responsibilities, I am able to handle the AM classes. When I was younger, that was a struggle.
Nah, I've always been an AM person. Give it to me
I
early.
am not an AM person. I've never been an AM person. The only thing is if it's PM, but like it's light, I'm gonna say light PM, right? Like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock.
That's
I
cool.
took some classes at like 7, 8 o'clock at night, and I wanted to DIE every single time. I'm never doing that again. But like light PM, I could do light PM, but like varsity PM, I can't do
Mhm.
varsity PM. Like that's not happening. All right, the next one. Undergrad or grad school?
Grad school. Different. Grad school academics, undergrad social.
Mm.
Fire.
Daitwan?
Cosign. Same thing.
Yes.
Same thing.
Really?
Same thing.
I like undergrad a lot. I didn't really like grad school. I'm gonna say I liked the grad school that I was in. I like most of the teachers. But I think for me it was working full time and juggling my classes. I felt like, and also like my classes were really weird. They was like 3-4 hours long for one class, and you only met that class one day a week.
I
So
have a
stuff like
question.
that, it made it really hard
Did
for
you go
me.
away or did you stay in town?
I mean, for grad school, both of them I stayed. So
What about you, Dr. Change?
All right, so I'm changing. There's a misconception. My answer is undergrad. I'm choosing undergrad over, but I like Dr. Davis's, grad school for academics, undergrad for the social part. A lot of my development in terms of me getting a better understanding of myself happened through a lot of the things that I was doing outside of the classroom, right? And so I tell my students, like, for college, there needs to be balance, but if you do college right, you can probably learn more about yourself out of the classroom than you do within it.
Yeah. Did you go away though? Because I
I
think
did.
that might
I
be
did.
the difference.
I was in Northeastern in Boston, Northeastern University in Boston.
That's why I think is a difference, Amber. Because when you dorm, it's a completely different undergrad feel. You really learn yourself as a person. You're
oh yeah,
forced
but
to.
I loved my undergrad experience because I felt like even though I didn't have the experience of going away, I still really got to I was working at the same time, but I was working part-time as opposed to working full-time. So I had a lot more time on my hands. I was involved in a lot of clubs and activities. So like I felt like I had the college experience except for I didn't get to party like most other people did.
I went away, and I think that academically, my high school was really, really good. And so, on some levels, when I went to college, it felt like a continuation of that and not an evolution of that.
Mm,
And
mm,
that's was like till the end did I really get into like the nitty gritty. I also switched majors, and it was like a lot of stuff in undergrad. So academically, I was a little lost. So maybe it was less them and more me. But socially, I learned everything, like similar to what Dr. Change said, like about myself, about people, observing, brand, everything, like when I moved off campus. So, but grad school, like really getting into who I am as a professional, that's where that got honed. Like really connected with the professors, understanding how to like really engage with professors. I think I still didn't have that knowledge in undergrad. So I treated them like professors versus like people that I can actually engage with, learn from in other ways, not only in the classroom. So I didn't build a lot of the bonds my other friends did in undergrad with professors that I learned to do in grad school.
for sure.
Nice. Last question. Small classes or large classes?
Small, and I like people.
Mm. So I love people. I love people, but I got a lot more out of the small, intimate classes.
Me too. I didn't really like the large classes. I felt like I learned, but um it wasn't the best learning experience, right? Because I still had to go home and do a lot of studying because there was some that was lost in like being in that big old lecture hall. So definitely a small class because I feel like I got more out of it. The teachers knew me a little bit better. You know, you can finesse a little bit more when you're in a small class than you can when you're in a large class because nobody really knows you. So awesome. Thanks for playing. I appreciate you, girl. So we're gonna introduce some news you can use because we try to like keep our ears to the streets and see like what's happening outside. So in news you can use, we actually seen this great article. Daitwan actually sourced this article in the Los Angeles Times where they were talking about this question right here. Should students get back their application fee if they were rejected? What do you guys think?
Listen, a lot of my students, when they hear the application fees before they even know
Child.
that they have fee waivers or whatever, they start to freak out like, yo, but what if like they ask this question? Um, I think I so fees, of course, historically have been a barrier for oftentimes for people of color. So the fee waivers help with that. In terms of like the process though, right? Like if we do a better planning process, I think students can be more strategic with schools that they're applying to, right? That are reasonable, and also there are initiatives that are being put out there to reduce this barrier. But I don't think you can. I don't think students should get their money like when they get rejected. Like that just sets a false precedent on life. That I think like yeah, it just sets a false precedent on life because you didn't have to apply, right? Like you didn't have to apply. This is a slippery slope because once again, application fees are historically a barrier for a lot of people and people of color. But I think the one of the greater things about this is I'm just concerned about the idea that it sets off that if you get rejected, you still can kind of like restart over like it's a video game, and now you don't like. So that's my thought.
Yeah, I have like similar feelings. So the thought that came to mind for me, I had a student who did the talent show for Halloween, where everyone came up, they showed their costume. You paid to get into the talent show. She paid $7. And after the show, she was very upset. She's a sixth grader. She felt the seniors overtook it and she didn't get to go and that she should get her money back. And I had to explain to her, you had the odds and you knew the odds when you put in your $7.
Mhm,
If you
mhm,
use those odds that there was a chance, you may lose. You
mhm.
can't get it back now that you lost. I think it's the same thing. Like when you fill out that application, you knew there's a chance that you may get rejected. Now, college and money and how they run as a business, that's a whole nother discussion.
Correct,
But I
correct.
think coming from just a mental health space, I think if we'd be like putting these band-aids on like life works like that, it's not gonna work
It
because
don't.
that's not life.
It
You knew
don't.
the stipulations when you signed up for it.
Period. I think the same thing. I think also like Daitwan said about being strategic. Like that's one of the things that I talk about when I have workshops with students, when I'm actually working with them one on one. I'm asking them to be strategic about their college list in the first place. You should not have schools on your list that you know for sure are way out of your reach. We want you to have reaches, but we want them to be realistic reaches. But sometimes, you know, you got the kid with the 69 that's like, I'm going to Harvard. Like, no, bruh. Like,
Mhm,
you just gonna give them your money. They're
mhm,
not giving that back,
Mhm.
and you have to understand that. So it's really important, I think, also being strategic with like how you're doling out your money and your time in putting together a college list that fits you so that you're not just giving away your money and then being upset about it and like I want my money back.
I
So
think
like
that
I
brings
mhm,
into
go ahead.
it brings into one that we speak about sometimes with also even knowing what your family income is. And I was someone, and
Big
there's a
time.
story. I applied for HEOP because I thought my parents was poor because my dad always screamed that he was poor. And I found out a very hard way with my application rejected for HEOP when they told me, your parent makes too much money. Do you know the like income requirement? So I think that goes into the application process too, because I think as you sometimes if you don't really know your family income and background and you know like that full understanding around the finances, you're applying to stuff thinking you fit the mold and you really don't.
mhm.
Oh
And as
yeah.
someone who actually experienced that, yeah, and our parents say a lot of stuff that may not be true.
Oh yeah.
My dad was
Oh
one
yeah.
Yeah,
My situation was the opposite. I found out we was broke the last year of school. So it was just like, you know, I had all these goals of like I was going away. I was like, I'm going states over.
of
I'm leaving. My aunt lived in South Carolina. I settled on a school in North Carolina. My stepdad had family that lived in North Carolina. So I was like, I'm going to be all right either way. Had a whole plan set in my head. And my mom was like, all right, so let's see the cost. And she was like, oh,
Yeah.
well, sorry to tell you. And
Mm,
even with all the full financial aid that I got full financial aid. It still wasn't enough to cover the cost. So it was just like, free to
And those weird
apply, but I would
cutoff
never be
lines.
able to afford it.
And the weird cutoff lines, because yeah, we weren't rich, and we
for
definitely
real.
didn't have money by far, but we didn't hit society's definition of poor. And so like, or the society's definition of struggling, or what your family does. My dad's a construction worker, so they
Mhm.
didn't know half the year he works and make great money, the second half of the years we eating ramen,
Yep.
like
Yep.
Yep.
For
and so
certain.
those goes into plays. Your family seasonal workers, what does that look like? Because the financial aid doesn't really give the full picture of what that all looks like. And I think that goes into the application when you're applying to colleges.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now we're going to give you some what nows, because I think it's important now we explore. Like, we gave you all of this information. We talked about a lot of things on this platform, but we want to
Mhm.
give you like some things that you can leave and walk away with and feel comfortable making your next step. So we're going to talk about our what now. So Daitwan, you want to start us off with what's the first what now? What is something that we can help them with now?
Yeah, so it's important. This is one of the greatest things, and it's really managing your time effectively, right? Like, time continues to move, and as we talked about, one of the things that I mentioned, a lot of students and young people struggle with understanding deadlines from others, right? Like, you got to understand, like, these deadlines are there for this institution to figure out the best way for them to manage their process and run how they're going to run, and they're not necessarily going to care about what you got going on in your life, which is real, right? That you should be validated in what it is that you are experiencing. But that doesn't mean others in life are going to accommodate that. So please manage your time effectively so that you have enough time to research, enough time to decide on a plan, enough time to change a plan if things are not working. So that's one of the things.
Awesome. And the next one is like eating well and sleeping well. Because some of y'all out here eating hot garbage early in the morning and wonder why your brain is off, or wonder
The
why
Takis,
you move the Takis, what's the hot Cheetos? Right? You can't eat that stuff early in the morning and expect your brain to be on for the rest of the day. And like with
Or
this
late
process,
at
you have so
night.
much. Yeah, or late at night.
The
It's,
caffeine late at night, and then be like, "Oh, I can't sleep, miss." So what do you
that's
eat
why.
before you
You just
went
drink crack
to
before bed. Literally, sugar is like the equivalent to a drug, like
You'll
crack.
be surprised how much I have that conversation, because one of the things you have to rule out before you go into anything is medical. And
Hmm.
so it's
mhm,
like, what are you eating? How are you sleeping? Because they'll be like, oh, this is going on. And it's like, when we start to break it down, you're having bad foods before bed. That's like increasing your caffeine level. That's why you're not sleeping. Or you're on the phone till two,
The
3 o'clock in the
crackwood.
morning, and then
Hmm.
getting up, and this is why you're falling asleep in the middle of your classes. And you would think it's simple things that youth will make connections with. They don't.
They don't.
mhm,
They
mhm.
They
swear they're
don't.
getting the most sleep in the world. I get up telling sleep, and I was like, no, you don't.
Right. Right. Daitwan, what's the
Yep.
next one?
So this one probably speaks more to me for me than maybe some of these students, but asking for help. Like, I still, as an adult, and am trying to get better at doing that, right? But please make sure that you ask for help. Closed mouths don't get fed. I'm going to restate that a little later. Also, find like people that can be allies and advocates. Just understand that there are things that you don't know. Just assume there are things that you do not know. So with this process, just continue to ask for help with what you might be struggling with, or what you just may not know altogether.
I'll
Yep.
also add to that, similar to that rejection conversation, not everything is a rejection, and sometimes people have things going on in their lives, and sometimes youth are so, self absorb that if a person says that they can't help one time, they never ask anyone else
Hmm.
again. So like, that one person may not be able to help you, and maybe seeking out the other people that
Mm,
might be able to help you. And it may not be this week. Maybe you have to like venture back, because there's so much stuff happening at times. You never know what's happening in someone else's life. So the first, a rejection, it doesn't mean that other people are not there who can help you.
Yep. Awesome. And the second to last one, because Dr. Kathyanne Davis is going to give you a good one, because it's something that I don't think we thought of. We want to make sure she covers it. But before we get to that, we want to tell you to find someone to vent to. This process is hard, right? We got over 45 steps to this entire process. It's going to get difficult at times, and it's okay to be upset. It's okay to be upset that things are not going your way. It's okay to be upset with the amount of steps that go into the process. It's okay to be upset that maybe like your mom didn't come up off the tax forms as fast as you wanted them to, but you find someone safe to vent to so that you can get those emotions out so you can get back to work. Because at the end of the day, while you're down, you don't want to be down so long that you don't get the things that you need to get done. So you make sure you find someone, you talk about it, you get it out, and then you get back to work. And at the end, you want to tell us about this safety plan. She talked about it a little bit earlier, but I want you to go back to what it means to create a safety plan. What does that look like?
So when I was thinking of it, I was thinking it more like when they're there in the environment. So now I'm going to try and shift it to like before they get to the environment. Because college, you definitely want to have a lot of different safety plans, and like who's the person that I call if like one of the things I think a lot of people don't do is that in a new environment, even especially in colleges, is false sense of safety. There are people here to protect me. These are the things that are supposed to happen. Even on a college level, when we're talking about like the high school level, when we're talking about like the essay writing, you would think adults would know this might be a traumatic experience for me. So you have to kind of set up your own safety plan. When I'm triggered about certain things, who do I go to? Where are the resources to go to that? Do I have people in this school I can go to? And so like any other safety plan, if you've ever done that in your life, you're literally going through and identifying in your biggest crisis moment, whether it be financial, whether it be emotional, whether it be, I don't know, like how do I connect with other people, then you're going to literally seek out what are the different resources that are there. So that may be looking at what colleges have those resources, which is something we don't look at with colleges. Like if I'm somebody who I know, I go to counseling, and you'd be surprised, it's a great thing, but a lot of our kids are in therapy. Yay, society. What's the counseling program like at my college? The colleges I'm looking at, do they have a counseling program? What's their rape statistics? Are things happening on their campus that are getting swept underneath the rug? Would we ever thought, one of the biggest HBCUs would have people sleeping outside because of mold? Like understanding and knowing what am I applying to more than just their academics, because it does play a big factor. Like I talked about earlier when I got on the dorm and I was like, my house was like way better than this. How do I share bathrooms? So it's like having those pieces as well as the communication ones outside the environment and inside the environment. Sometimes we're like too much of the inside of the environment in a friends group that are very loose. And you want to have your outside people as well. I speak about that in high school a lot, because in high school, they think the friends inside the building are the biggest things. And then sometimes they share things that spread. So who are your outside people you can go to so that it's not spreading on the inside? So you're literally putting down the things that are most important to you and then building out with who would be those support systems. And if you can't think of it, maybe finding support, someone else who can help you to think through the process and what that looks like.
Nice. I love it.
Love it.
And it's something counselors can incorporate into their practice too, with like as they get accepted. So maybe that's like another step after the student is accepted, things to look at.
I'm letting you know right now. Thank you for that, because I will definitely that's why we're gonna have to coordinate, because I think that's gonna like level us up. Definitely is like, I think we have conversations about it in passing, but like actually having like a plan, like along with your post-secondary plan and knowing where you're gonna go. I think having that safety plan, I think that's also like something that will be really beneficial to a lot of students. So thank you for sharing that.
We lose a lot of kids the first year, especially our men. Our men are not surviving the first year, surviving the first semester, and it's due to not the academics. They can academically handle it. It's all the other things that are in place that are the struggle. And so I think having something like that and really thinking about that, which is not talked about much, would help them through that process. Know who I can go to, what are my support groups, who am I building with.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Okay, we got one more segment before we wrap this all up because we always got to tell you where you can get the money. Right? So definitely listen up because we have a few things happening. So every week we share a opportunity or something where you can get money for college. So today we have two things. We have the Scholarships Plus. So tomorrow, November 3rd, they're also going to have another one, but it won't be until January. So if you miss tomorrow's session, you have to wait until January to link up with Scholarships Plus. Scholarships Plus is a program that supports you in winning scholarships. You have to have an 85 plus GPA, and also your parents have to make under $50,000. So the goal is to get more young people who are having like a low income experience to experience college as close to free as possible. So this is a program where you can definitely do that. So make sure you check that out. If you can't see the link, just like let us know, send us a message, or comment under here, and we'll give you the link directly, because I think that's also really important. If you meet that criteria, 85 plus average, under $50,000 family income, then this is definitely a scholarship for you. We also have the Jack Kent Cook Scholarship,
Mm-hmm.
which is a scholarship program that comes out every year. They have one for undergrads, and they also have one for students who are already in undergrad. So you definitely want to check this out. This one is November 18th. So you don't want to miss that deadline. Again, if you want the information to these scholarships, please, send us a message or comment underneath the broadcast, and we'll send you these links directly. Also, if you check my app, On Track for College, these links will be going out this week as well, to anybody who is linked up with that app. So make sure that you check there as well, because the links will be there within the notification section. So now we are going to wrap up. We gave you so much game today. If you didn't get to watch us live, please make sure you catch us on the replay. We're definitely here for you always. So make sure you catch us on the replay so you can learn all the information that Dr. Kathyanne Davis she was spitting today, y'all. She was spitting, y'all. So much information about how to help teens through this process of college in the middle of a panty. So you want to definitely make sure you catch us on a replay. So Daitwan, you want to wrap us up right quick?
Yes, yes, yes. So loose concrete, once again, loose concrete recap. I explained the story that I was supposed to be doing co-op while I was in college. And I happened to be working construction with my father, who was a construction worker. And I tell the story of how like he tried to, just make sure that I got my butt back to college. So he had, one of his peoples put the pressure on me to make sure I was carrying the heavy wheelbarrow with the loose concrete all the way to the other side, and basically was putting pressure like, yo, this is hard work. Get your mind together. And with that, a lot of times for young people, like stuff solidifies whether you want it to or not, right? Like deadlines and everything. And part of the reason why we wanted to do this particular show and segment is to help you out to understand the importance of being able to advocate for yourself, to understand why it's important to challenge your own identity, to challenge your support system, and be able to utilize your resources to get to where you want to be. So the loose concrete recap today is a little different. I was pretty much taking notes of what Dr. Davis said, and Dr. Davis need to put all of these on a shirt. So social capital could be greater than financial capital. She definitely broke that down. Like you can leverage and possibly get so much further by having social capital to be connected with so many different things. People that can remove some barriers, can find you a meal, can help you get connected to resources that you need to be successful. That is within the college application process and while you're on college, while you're in college. I always say this, and I'm glad you used this word. First, you said an affinity group, find your affinity group, and then you said tribe. I always say, please make sure that you find your tribe, and you can find your tribe within this process as well. Your peers are going through this process, and some of them may know more than you about what you're trying to apply to. Um, find your allies and advocates. That's definitely a really key thing for this process in applying to college and surviving, persisting through it. Identify your coping tools. I'm glad we had a professional here that was able to kind of talk about and reemphasize the importance of coping tools. I know Amber just stated that Dr. Davis was speaking specifically to a lot of the students, but I think she also mentioned something that's very critical. I've also stated that things like the personal statement or something like this college application process can be traumatizing. So people that are working with our students need to be aware of that, need to, do check-ins, need to just make sure that students are able to just kind of checking on where they at with what is being conjured from whatever is happening with this process. Get creative to reignite your motivation. I love the fact that you talk about some of the things we just cannot do because it's not feasible. We're in the pandemic. Amber, I'm not going to use your word. That's not my word. I need your hype, your bridge word. I'm not going to use that. That's not me. Right?
What?
I'm not using that. Right? We in the panorama. I'm going to go with panorama. But that word you're using, it's gonna come
We
out of
in
my
the
mouth. Right?
candy. What you
No, I'm
want?
not doing it. I'm not doing that. It sounds too crazy. It sounds nuts. All right. So yes. So with that, I love the idea of making some of these things more engaging, like a family night of watching a college tour, and you being able to kind of really understand that you have to adapt, you have to change, because the idea is if you can't do things the way that you want to, you need to understand what are you prioritizing, the way you want to do it or the end goal, right? Like that's very important. Um, we want to make sure that we're understanding that we need to build resiliency, and resiliency comes with hard work and a lot of challenges. So just already have that in your mind. Make sure that you connect your natural talents and skills to your desired outcomes, right? Like that was a powerful thing right there. A lot of my students that I've worked with are natural hustlers, finesses. Like they pretty much know how to advocate for the things that they want. They need to make sure that that is a transferable skill because it comes naturally to some of them. Closed mouths don't get fed. We talked about that. Please make sure that you understand the importance of advocating for yourself and asking questions. Last two, explore your passions as opposed to just your majors, right? And what other people are saying that you need to automatically get into, even if there's something that you have been doing forever, right? Like there may be a point in time where you may need to question it. I was doing computers, with rocking with computers since the third grade. I chose that as a major. And I realized, like, yeah, I may have to abandon this. That was a tough choice because I choose not to abandon anything. But I had to abandon it, not abandon it, but once in a while, realize like I had a different path, a different passion that was more aligned with what it is that I wanted to do. And last but not least, understand what is a best fit for you. That's including the academic, the social, cultural, and the financial. Like all of those things need to be considered. And Dr. Davis, we certainly thank you. I want to say two last things. One is I would love to have you back on to have a more thorough conversation about how are we trying to address the needs of Black men, Black young men in the space of the college application process and persistence. I think it's such a crucial conversation. I had a conversation literally 2 hours before we jumped on about trying to figure out like what should we do about that. So I think that's an important conversation. Um, so I'd love to have you on about that. Also, lastly, next week, we are hopefully having this conversation. I think it's going to happen. We have confirmed some guests where we're going to be bringing on Black men that are within this college access field and being able to kind of gauge their perspective. Like, what are they noticing? What are they seeing? Possibly being able to kind of be maybe a prelude to some of the conversations we'll have with you, Dr. Davis, hopefully. So I'm looking forward to that. And it'll be the second week that I'm hopefully getting people to put some respect on my name, Dr. Change.
Okay, Daitwan.
That's how I feel.
Dr.
Dr. Change,
Change.
respect the name.
Dr. Change.
Oh, last
Fine,
one.
Dr. Change.
I appreciate you. No, I'm not sure if I'm gonna keep it or not, but right now that's what it is. Shout outs to my a close friend, is a family, cousin Cornbread's closet. I'm wearing a shirt. Y'all may recognize this to have a different meaning. I'm not going with your meaning. I'm not going with your meaning. I got my own meaning, right? But cousin Cornbread's closet.com. Please support out. Phenomenal brother of mine that is doing dope things. Amber, check us out.
Yeah. So thank you guys for watching On Track with All My People. Shout out to you, my boo, Dr. Kathyanne Davis. Just so you know, we peoples in real life. This is the homegirl. Y'all know I don't mess with whack people. So definitely when you look and you see the people that we bring on this show, please know that we have your best interest at heart. And we're only gonna bring you the best of the best of the best. Thank you guys for watching. We truly appreciate you. You got something you want to say to the people, Dr. Kathyanne, before we peace out?
I thought Dr. Change did a great sum up with everything I said. It was nice. But no, just no, like you said, the social capital and reaching out and using your network. Your team is bigger than you know. Media will make you believe that we need to do things as individual, but our community has always survived as being a community and connected with each other and building from each other. So when you try to do it alone, you stumble more.
Appreciate it.
And that's that on that. Thank you guys for watching and tuning in. We will see you next week. Have a great
All right,
one. Till next time.
all right.